The Report.
Immigration, honestly, it's sometimes like politicians deliberately creating a problem so they then can boast when they try to fix it. Today, I'll give you two examples. In Victoria, the Labor government today announced massive spending in its budget to deal with some of the terrible congestions caused in Melbourne, in particular by population growth. I mean, just last year alone, 80,000 more immigrants, 1 year, one city. So today, Labor promised $2.5 billion to ease the traffic congestion on suburban roads now. Another $1 billion for country roads. Then go to New South Wales. Another example. Labor promising there to help fix the crush on hospitals like one in Campbelltown. And Labor MP Mike Freelander, a former paediatrician, again also blaming population growth, 2/3 of which is immigration.
We've seen rapid increases in number of operations required, had rapid increase in the waiting list for things. It's desperate because we are facing this rapid increase in population with rapid increases in presentations to our public hospital system.
See what I mean? Give them a credit for throwing more money at a problem they actually fixed by massive immigration. I don't know. Joining me is the panel, Liberal MP Andrew Hasey and Bruce Hawker, former Labor campaign guru and head of the Campaigns and Communications Group. Hello to you both. But listen, Bruce, you used to work for New South Wales Premier Bob Carr, who famously said and got bucketed for it, Sydney's full. Wouldn't it actually be simpler and cheaper to slow down immigration, a 250,000 people let in last year, than try to fix at huge cost the problems we're seeing?
Yeah, it's a complex problem, Andrew. It's true that immigration does add to the sorts of issues that were being discussed by those politicians then, infrastructure pressure. But on the other hand, immigration is what actually grows the country in large part, and there's been plenty of studies to demonstrate that. So while it's true that you do get this pressure on traffic and on hospital intakes and so forth, they're also building infrastructure that's creating wealth in the community, and the people that come in, they contribute to the community by buying things from shopkeepers and from traders and wherever else they spend their money in order to stimulate the economy. So it's not an easy problem to address, and I don't think we can just say slowing down immigration is necessarily the answer, although there are times, say when there's high unemployment, that I think there is a case to be made for putting a slower on the immigration intake for a while until things pick up again, and then speed it up. I think, though, that really immigration is something which we have benefited from in this country. I mean, we're basically all immigrants.
Well,
and we'll continue to.
Andrew, Bruce says, and is right, that the economy grows bigger, but the problem is, of course, as the Treasury admitted, that when you slice up the pie among the more people that you have, per person we don't actually get much richer at all, and then we're left with worse traffic, hospital queues like you just heard, things like that. I mean, I don't think that most Australians actually feel better off for through this mass immigration. What do you think?
Well, thanks, Andrew. Good evening. The first thing I'd say is I agree with Bruce. This is a complex issue, but ultimately immigration has to be sustainable. The key pressure points we keep hearing about are employment, wage stagnation, the cost of housing, and of course the need for more infrastructure. So I think the task of the Commonwealth Government is to look after the interests of tax-paying Australians first, and at the same time have a generous immigration program. You're the descendant of Dutch migrants, my forebears from Scotland. No one's opposed to immigration, but I think it is important to have a debate and question whether current levels are sustainable. That's what people involved in public policy do.
Do you think they are?
Well, I agree with John Howard, and I would say that we should have the discussion.
But you're not prepared to give an opinion?
Well, look, I'm off to a rally at a local hospital, the Peel Health Campus, straight after this interview, which was originally built for a population of 35,000 people. In my region, the Peel region, we're at about 90,000 now, and the hospital's just too small. So we're going to fight for more funding from the McGowan government here in WA. So it's front and centre for me. I just want to have clear evidence before I come to a position on this.
See, Andrew.
Okay, well, meanwhile, people have got longer queues at your hospital. Sorry, Bruce, I interrupted you.
Well, I was just going to say that migrants pay their taxes as well, and they have to call out for better hospitals like the ones that Andrew's referring to. But without population growth, you get significant problems. Now, housing prices, for example, is in the last year. The price of housing in Darwin has dropped by nearly 8% because people are leaving Darwin. It's losing its value because people are leaving. So that's the sort of thing you need to be very conscious about. If we just say let's ratchet down the population, there are other unforeseen consequences to that, which people will really then be starting to complain about. Ask anyone in Darwin.
Except our population growth at the moment is the highest in the OECD. In our near neighbourhood, it's only exceeded by Papua New Guinea. It is just incredible, the level of population growth. The ABS warned about it earlier. But listen, hot news from Tasmania. Andrew, I don't know whether you know this person, but a woman who's just done the dirty on the newly elected Liberal government in Tasmania, won the election by one seat. Today, one of those new MPs, former Hobart Mayor Sue Hickey, actually voted with the Greens and Labor to make herself the new Speaker above the Liberals' choice. I mean, I know that she's now got a nice job, much more money. What do you make of that act of what I have to say is, in my opinion, bastardry?
Well, first of all, Andrew, I don't follow Tasmanian politics too closely. I follow the flow of WA money to Tasmania through GST redistribution, but it's the first time I've heard of Sue Hickey tonight. Certainly it sounds like what we would call in my former vocation a jack act, very selfish, and she's obviously done a deal, and, well, I hope she enjoys those sweet dollars that come with being the Speaker.
And having few friends. Bruce, I mean, honestly, isn't this the kind of act that make people look at politics and think, my goodness, what a crowd there that are in there. And I know it's not fair because, look, we've got Andrew here with us. There are people I admire in politics, but this kind of stuff, for heaven's sake.
Well, I think it generally does lower the general esteem and that people have for politicians, and particularly for this woman. And in the Labor Party, they refer to people who do things like that as rats, and they're the lowest form of life. So, I think that's the sort of tone that this sort of act sort of evinces usually, because when the shoe's on the other foot, it might not be such a terrible thing from the point of view of the Labor Party down in Tasmania. But I don't like it. I don't like it, and I think most people don't. It's a tactical game which can, at the end of the day, cause repercussions that you don't want. For example, in the case of this particular instance, if this woman does leave the Liberal Party, as it's mooted that she may, then that means, and already means, that the Parliament's hung, and it could be even in a more precarious position. And I don't know that anyone would really want to go back to an election right now. I don't know that they would reward Labor for that. So that's my view about it.
No. Yeah, look. Hey, Andrew, the election now is really taking shape. I mean, both sides have said or suggested they'll be offering personal tax cuts, which is great. Although Labor's got more money to offer bigger ones because it's done all these other tax and smash and grabs around the place. So it's going to have about $200 billion over 10 years more to spend on stuff. Now, Labor today, and I think this is a warning to you guys, Labor today dropped its second big hint in 2 days that it's going to also bring the budget to surplus sooner or more solidly than the Turnbull government. Here's the Shadow Treasurer.
Now, a surplus of 0.5% of GDP, which is all that it is projected to get to under the government's own figures, current set of figures, is one open to the vagaries of international economics and changes in international economic circumstances. The Labor Party will have plenty more to say about our return to surplus trajectory, but we've made the tough decisions to get the budget back into surplus. We've made the tough decisions which the government opposes to improve the budget bottom line. The Treasurer is simply giving up on the task of a healthy, sustainable, long-term budget surplus.
Andrew, I think the shape is turning out there. Labor offering bigger tax cuts, personal tax cuts. Yes, it's got those bigger tax sockets, you know, a tax along the margins, but bigger personal tax cuts and sooner return to budget surpluses. That's a bit of a dangerous combination for you, isn't it?
Well, they opposed our small business tax cuts, which are the lowest in 50 years. We've given small business tax cuts to small businesses of 27.5%. Well, that's the new tax rate. So, and they oppose those. So I don't know how they're going to make people better off. But look, I'm a partisan MP. I'm a Liberal MP, so I would say no. But largely based on historical experience. Kevin Rudd, before he was elected in 2007, masqueraded as an economic conservative. And of course, we know that the devil can quote scripture too. Over 6 years, they ran deficits of $240 billion, which are on track to $1 trillion until the coalition was elected in 2013. And since that time, we've halved spending per year from 4% to 1.9%, and we're on track to get the budget in balance by 2021. So, you know, good on them. They can make the argument, but I just don't see it happening.
Bruce, I've only got 20 seconds, but this is a return to the pitch that won Kevin Rudd the election with your help. That is, this sort of reckless spending must stop.
Indeed, and
no one believed it though.
It was one of the things that really took the wind out of John Howard in his sails in 2007, and I think when you have a tax cut being offered to big business, which amounts to $70 billion, then it's a pretty easy case to make for Labor, and they can point to this being an unfair form of taxation, or an unfair tax break for the big business. So that's where they can take this argument with the electorate, and I think it's very powerful. Very powerful indeed.
Yeah, I think it is powerful, but I do think, you know, Andrew's counter there is probably the one the government have to rely on. They can say what they like, but don't trust them, because Kevin Rudd, of course, did promise this reckless spending must stop and then launched the daddy of all spending things with the GFC came.
Well, he didn't start the GFC though, Andrew. He didn't start that.
No, he didn't start the
had
GFC, but he's left us with a legacy of deficits
and
to
growth.
the wazoo. But, well, yes, yeah. Well, maybe. Andrew Hastie, Bruce Hawker, thank you so much indeed for your time.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, mate.
Thanks, Andrew.
Thank you both for your time. Coming up...